Welcome to the Women's Agency Podcast, where we talk business, life, and empowered women. The show is brought to you by the Women's Agency, amplifying women's voices. Hello, everyone. I'm Arlia Hoffman. I am thrilled to have you here today. I have the best time on podcasts because I just get to talk to amazing people doing amazing work in the world, and they're just humans. We're all just humans stumbling through life. But every now and then you meet extraordinary humans who have navigated incredible challenges and huge successes and lows. And that's what all my conversations are about, is highlighting women who have been through a lot and are creating their own lives in a way that really brings them joy and fulfillment. And I'm thrilled today to welcome Diana Murphy. She is a mindset and mindset coach for leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners. Diana is the host of the podcast, The Leader's Table, Powerful Conversations That Matter. She works with owners that want growth without burnout and the sacrifice. She guides owners back to their brilliance and unique power as they grow as leaders in their business. She loves stepping in and supporting owners as a mental mentor, encourager, and wise leader of their genius. She helps them get back into their powerful lane, no matter what has pushed them out of it. Just like I was saying, life circumstances, high growth, not the growth expected. It's experience of life, isn't it, Diana?
Yeah, it is. Who knew, Arlia, that the journey, what I feel like I'm living in right now, that the journey of becoming an entrepreneur and creating a practice, a life coach business, so that I could practice my craft and be really doing in the world what I'm called to do, that journey teed me up for a support that I didn't know I needed for what I've gone through in the last 2 years. And so I'm so thankful for all the women and the coaches that I have had along the way, and my own, like, learning to honor my own knowing and intuition in a way that I am in a really grounded, great new place. But the thankfulness for those along the way is just
absolutely, yeah,
huge.
In my season of transformation, I had one pivotal person, my therapist, who became a dear friend and mentor. I really don't know how I would have survived without her.
I feel the same experience. Yes. And I have 3 coaches that I was so fortunate to be in community with, to tap their resources, and almost knew subconsciously that they were the right fit for me. And that was the beginning actually of the journey of really honoring my deeper intuition and taking true big steps, brave steps, investing money or time or whatever, and knowing who to lean in with to learn what I was being invited to next.
So as a coach, you're speaking a lot about intuition, but I also know that you have been in a very corporate mindset and corporate lane. Talk about how you started and how you got here.
So I first started, which some people don't know because the podcast is still out there, but I started as a weight loss coach because of my own transformation. Yes, I was a woman that was put on her first diet when she was 5, and really was that journey. When you think of the 50s and the beginning of diet culture, I was that woman. And so I entered my life and really drained a lot of energy, always seeking how to fix my body. And the journey of peace around food, my relationship with food, changed while I was at Weight Watchers. But I also knew something else was going on for me, that I was learning to honor my own appetite. I was really getting so much great body awareness, but my mindset would be in the way. And so I learned that I knew something more was going on than following the points, and honored that, and became a weight loss coach first. But I always was coaching type A people. So I was working, actually in Weight Watchers, I was working in the corporate space at Southern Company and other corporations. And I fell in love. That's when I fell in love with my ideal client. men and women who are very type A high achievers, but are seeing some places where that culture gets them out of alignment. And so that was the beginning of the journey. But I knew I shifted to mindset work when I realized that I was not going to be that coach that helped them lose 20 pounds in 6 months, because the work I wanted to do was deeper and pre-prepared them to lose the 20 pounds personally. And they were coming to me for the quick fix, even though I shared that wasn't my work. And so I've actually been able to do more of that embodied awareness around food as sometimes a coaching goal with some of my clients as we do the other work of mindset.
Okay,
So that's the
stop you right
beginning.
there, because that's really amazing that most coaches wouldn't say, "What's your relationship with food?"
Yeah. Yeah. That is what was healed. Honoring that a little girl that was told that her body was wrong because she was had extra fat on her body, and then was told she couldn't eat certain foods. And that what I know I learned is that, oh, I can eat when I'm hungry, and there aren't good and bad foods. There's food. Now, there are foods that my body loves and feels more alive with, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And so that was the healing relationship with food that I was able to enjoy. And it was all about honoring and being compassionate with myself as I honored all the mindset that was getting in the way of that and that was being harsh with me. And that's the biggest work I do, is changing that internal conversation with my clients. That's the first line of work I do.
So take us through that journey to today.
Whew. So I fell in love as I became and identified as a business owner. I fell in love with the business owner as a client. I also love middle management, men and women that are navigating that squeeze between upper management, the culture of the organization, but they're really great leaders. And so when I just fell in love with those people, and I'm sure it's falling in love with the part of myself that was becoming awakened. And I started doing work where I really helped, again, people get back into their honoring their intuition, honoring what they know they want, learning to navigate structure that is either part of their company or what they've been taught, even though they're an individual solopreneur, that really giving up the structures that create burnout and helping them to navigate and be more powerful in their decision making and boundary setting and how they spent their time. And so that has been my work in whatever transitions people are in, selling their business, trying to grow a business when you've left corporate and everything came your way, and learning how to just get so individually powerful and grounded in what they wanted to bring in the world. The clients came naturally. And so that is the work that I've been doing for the last probably 6 years, is helping people that are just, they really see the vision and they're really confused by why it's so hard, or they're very overwhelmed. And we start unlocking the layers that are getting in the way.
Yeah, I can so relate to that.
Yes.
I struggled in corporate for years until, of course, intuition was not paired with corporate work.
No.
The business world for forever, until I started my own business. And it's only recently that I have felt, I guess you'd say, warmth and openness and receptivity to should the universe bring corporate work back into my life.
Yeah.
Just say that and say,
Yeah.
I'm allowing what is, but that kind of burnout is very real for those who are very aligned with their tuition, or creatives, or people who don't.
Yes. And some do need to leave. What I love navigating with individuals, if they are in a position that they is really creating financial safety by not making quick moves. And so when people tell me they want to leave a marriage or leave a job or leave, we get to that space of honoring wanting to move fast so that we don't feel the pain, and honoring the discomfort of what's going on and getting more wisdom from what is really happening there. And I love helping navigate people within a structure that, like, where they take their personal agency back. And that's part of being a leader, is honoring, if they can start honoring their own intuition and create space for that and make decisions from that, they can still work in corporate. We don't have to leave corporate always. Now, sometimes we do, but we don't need to always leave our supportive system to make those changes. And I loved being a part of that with clients. No, it's living out the structure.
Particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a particular way of life. I love that. You talked about it both, this and the weight loss, getting away from the quick fix
Yeah.
and not
Yes.
hurrying. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about, in a much larger context, about it's the hustle, but they used a different word. But it's that we have been so conditioned
Yes.
to hurry and forward progress and forward motion at all costs that we leave ourselves somewhere back there.
Yes.
And I love the fact what you're saying is to really slow down and be with yourself and know what's actually happening for you and is important to you.
I often say with clients, and it started in my weight loss work, that slowing down is the new fast. It really is. And I learned it in my own journey with my relationship with food. Now, I am actually still a very quick eater, but I have gotten it, and that's just my energy around food, and I can enjoy it, but I also know when to stop, and it doesn't harm me anymore. I used to eat really fast and find an empty plate and was so ashamed I'd already eaten that I would go get seconds. That's literally why I started overeating as a child. And now I honor, I'm like, yep, I'm done. And I'm going to sit and enjoy the meal, the rest of the meal with you. But what that grew in business was helping leaders that have no white space. Basically, it's the first thing we do is creating in on purpose white space so that they can get back into their minds and their creativity and their intuition.
I was just saying to you before we went on the air, I have more white space in my day these days. And I didn't know how much of my creativity was missing.
You don't until
I feel it.
And I think for clients, they start missing themselves. That's where they get the discomfort. And it can be within their own business as well as in a corporate role. It's really the same. I'm coaching the same person. It's the same mindset and identity that people come to me. And when we release the fear and understand the fear that's created by, but if I don't hustle and work really hard, I'm not going to create what I want. And that is the work I do in gently holding that in place because that's there. And if we deny it, we don't heal from it. And so it's like holding that, yeah, if I don't work 50 hours a week, I'm not going to get what I want. You don't jump to, okay, I'm going to work 4-hour days and create what I need. It does not happen overnight. And I've watched clients that, yes, it just doesn't. But there are immediate, gorgeous results from taking slower time in the morning, taking more time with your family, taking a 15-minute lunch break where you do not talk to anyone. You take a solo walk on purpose to process something at work or just to be quiet. And so one of the resources that was one of the first books that I share is The Practicing Mind by Thomas Sterner. And it was the literal practice of slowing down mentally in the moment. And it was so powerful for me when I started being able to do that mentally, not to understand that I have a very busy mind, I always will, but to slow down and just allowing the discomfort while you seek and invest time in that white space and move in that.
That's an interesting point because you said this about your food as well, that your natural rhythm is fast. And I think that's great to point out because that doesn't mean if you're slowing down your presence and your mind, that doesn't mean everything else is going to slow down. You're honoring whatever your natural rhythm is.
It's so important. Yeah.
Finding ways to work with it instead of against it.
I had a woman that had a very high level of working hours. And she was afraid to work with me because she knew she was going to hear that she needed to start working 9 to 5 and not weekends. And she was a founder of a very large company. And I knew that I needed, as a coach, to hold space for what was to help her find the windows of honoring her own rhythm. And I don't know what's best for my clients. I help mine that wisdom from them, and we deal with that rhythm, and everyone is different. I'm learning a lot about rest because of that. We talked off camera, off mic, about how really big these last 2 weeks have been for you and I. And now I'm watching myself. I used to resist and then push through. And now I'm allowing the slow this morning and allowing myself to get really gentle before we got on the mic today so that you would get the best from me. And knowing and looking at my calendar and actually looking at, do I need to cancel some things? And usually, like, it happens for me. Things will get canceled because somebody's sick. And I'm like, and I just allow those to not be disappointments anymore, but to opportunities to be with myself. So I hope that's helpful.
I wanted to ask about trust, because when you're describing the situations about slowing down, I hear in the background the belief that I work with, which is if I don't hustle, I won't have what I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've worked in myself with trust for a long time, but it's only recently that particular, because your mind makes up particular phrases that sometimes you have to unlock. But that particular belief really has come up for me recently because there's more white space in my day and it's triggered a lot of fear. And yet I see things working out around me in beautiful ways. So there's no need to fear. But what did Alice Walker say? Trust in the goodness of the earth. Just trust in the goodness of life, that there is a solution.
Yeah.
And my hustle won't make that any better.
Yeah.
I remember saying to my family at some point in the past, oh, I don't hustle, just because I didn't like that hustle.
Yeah, you're rejecting
But I absolutely can hustle when I'm in alignment with, this is happening and it's got to happen right now. So to me, it's the ego parsing out what is that personal rhythm of we're on, let's go, versus the hustle from a sense of unworthiness, really.
Yes. And my well-being, my identity, when you think of owners, you think of people that have left corporate to start a business. Like, some of them actually don't even need the financial piece. It's just an identity that I need to do this and I need to be successful.
And I'm not successful if I'm not working.
Yeah. But it is this deeper trust issue. So my journey was thinking about the trusting myself around food. People would ask me, don't you need to clean out your cabinets of all the things you shouldn't eat? I was like, no. And I don't drink alcohol anymore. And that's since August. And it's, oh, is it okay to drink around you? It's, oh no, it's already done. But what I want to honor here is that holding that awareness that there's an invitation to hustle and an invitation from the outside to believe something different that negates how you want to do it. That awareness is letting it go, just another layer of that belief in yourself. But then, and you and I both understand that, for my clients, it's holding that awareness and making decisions and testing and learning to trust by doing it a few times, like by really taking the Friday off that feels scary, or taking a lunch off that feels scary. We start with small baby steps and seeing what it gives back. What's your hypothesis of what you want to do with white space? Let's try it. It's like almost a practical scientific experiment. And what does it give you back? And what's gorgeous is that they have a hunch about what they're really desiring. It could be time reading. It could be time being with other people because they're parents and business owners and their friendships are lacking. And it's like taking small baby steps and feeling a little discomfort because this is not how they've been doing things, and then realizing the benefit to themselves. And then that's where the trust gets like, oh, I'm going to try this. I can do it. I can continue to do it. I can say no to it. It's like that freedom space, but really trusting that inner desire over what's being taught to you outside. That has been my journey of getting so grounded as a coach that I'm operating my business totally differently than I did 8 years ago. I've been a coach for 10. And that transformation of trust started at probably my first taste of trusting myself in it was 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. But you've
That's
had,
sad, but true.
it just is. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. I was listening to everything that was being taught in coach world that the six-figure year made you a good coach. I was already a really good coach. I'm just wired to be such. Then I'm poised in a position where if I had taken the advice of my mentors at the time, I would be possibly in bankruptcy because I was in the world that was scaling at all costs and with very high ticket, and it didn't feel right to me. And I had a coach say, what if you are just that unknown locomotive? You don't have to be a figure. What if you were that unknown locomotive? And I want to invite everyone to understand this for themselves that is chugging along with this gorgeous business and bringing and inviting clients in and showing up in a way that they know what you're about. And that is just perfect and creates more impact than I ever realized. And when I started honoring that, I'm now talking to coaches that work with those coaches, my coach, and she goes, Diana, you're poised perfectly for this. Everybody's pivoting to what you've been doing for 10 years. I wish someone had told me that 6 years ago. You're doing it right. But I did honor that. This is how I'm going to do it. I run a very highly profitable practice so that I can invest in great coaching for myself because that's what creates a great coach. But it honors my lifestyle of being in my 60s and still working and having great impact with the people I work with, but enough restoration time that I can go very deep with people. I know now that's my rhythm.
yeah. Let's talk about your own personal restoration.
Yes. Ooh, this has been a big couple years. To make the story as short as possible, and I'm always open to questions. If anyone resonates or is living this right now as a girlfriend, as a woman in the world, please email me and let me support you as a friend. But my evolution, I was blissfully running my practice and I came upon a situation where it was time for me to leave a 40-year marriage. We chose very courageous intentions to do this very wholeheartedly. We wrote our divorce and then legalized it through a mediator. And we now operate our finances as joint owners, as if it was a business, because we're so late in life. We are in a situation where that would have harmed our own financial well being. And we dug into therapy and we are now joining each other as parents at our family events. So our kids don't have to have separate Christmases and all those. And I'm just thankful that we both emotionally are in a place that's healthy. It's not always an option for people. It was an option for me. And that year I did really great work in my coaching work with the clients that were there, but my energy was helping that move to happen. And so I made half the income I normally do, but we sold a home in 2 days. And I put the energy into supporting that whole process. And of course, this year I'm right back up to my normal rhythm and financial space that feels really good to me. And was really in an opportunity to live out what I was also coaching on. Like I was able to learn how to emotionally process grief in a way I had always been authentic, but I had not been as vulnerable with my audience because there was a secret. I really had a marriage that was soul stealing. I was really being pushed away. And because of what was going on individually for my ex. And I now understand it and there's less confusion and I'm more open and living in full truth now. But that was a brave journey of really honoring the grief that came when I had a Thanksgiving all by myself and honoring how my young sons, they're in their 30s, but don't quite understand a mom who's dating. So I have done the journey of being on all the apps. I knew I wanted a relationship, and I have healed and grown in a way that I'm creating that. And it has been a gorgeous gift because I now created a larger bandwidth emotionally to carry the capacity of people that are going through very tough emotional
Yeah,
circumstances.
grief changes you forever.
Yes, it does. It does. But the joy, my word of the year last year was joy. And I had a story about last year that it was a really tough, hard year. I can't wait to step into the next calendar year, but had an event where they were having us review our photos. Oh my word. I have had a granddaughter turn 1 last year
Mhm.
and 2 very soon. I was in the sun in the Caribbean a lot of my time last year. I went on my first solo trip and I went to Belize. And I had a deep dive coaching retreat in my mountains and just have these delightful, amazing experiences that I've had that I created and allowed at the same time that I was like, oh my gosh, COVID is going to ruin our Thanksgiving and I am going to be alone. The rest of my family all had family and coupled. It was the first year I realized I am a single woman. And of course, this year I had my own solo Thanksgiving on purpose. I feel like it was the healing bookend to it that I chose to be on my own and I had a solo retreat. And just the circumstances worked out. That was the right thing for me. And I had a gorgeous time in Seacrest, Florida by myself. Yeah. So it's been quite a journey.
What has this done for you emotionally or personally? Like it's been for me, my divorce just created this groundswell of change.
It did for me too.
It was every aspect of my life was turned upside down, and
Mm-hmm.
sexuality, spirituality, personality, health, and I sourced my spiritual awakening from that time period. How was that for you?
Yeah, it really was a space where I have been part of large evangelical congregations since I've been in Atlanta. And my first thought when our divorce started happening is that I wasn't going to have support from that community because divorce was seen as such a antithesis to faith and a spiritual growth. There's just so many unique dynamics to it that whether that was true or not, of some of the leaders that I could have leaned in on, I knew it wasn't safe for me to navigate. I had to really step aside and find different support. And came along a coach that does betrayal work and now is doing work for women that are in highly structured religions like that. But I was with her as a client, just emotionally processing the deep pain. And so that journey started really in that moment. And I'm in a space now spiritually where I have engaged in practices that felt very, forgive the term, wooey from a culture of corporate and was like, oh, that's not for me. I'm the mindset coach. And it's, oh, I'm being invited to a spiritual journey here. And so it was deeply spiritual what I stepped into. And the trust part has been looking back and trusting that the way I may have named things differently, and I don't think that those, like in a spiritual context, it's just the way the human brain understands it. So maybe I don't call it Holy Spirit anymore, but I engage with spirit. And I know that wisdom I tapped in on mentoring other women and was always from a wholehearted, gorgeous place. That it wasn't really done in structure. It was done with a lot of love. And I'm coming to be able to forgive myself for being in such highly structured that might have hurt someone because it harmed me. And so now I'm in this space of engaging in a really different way with spirituality.
And by highly structured, you're referring to the highly structured organized religions.
Yes, yes, that are very patriarchal and where women are not allowed to lead or not allowed, they only are allowed to lead women's groups. And yeah, I remember being asked to deep dive when I was interviewing mentors and that I would need to deep dive about their divorce to make sure that they were on the right path or whatever. I don't even know what their goal was. And so that informed me that this was not a place that I would be fully understood and that I could trust. And I honored that. The old Diana 8 years ago would have forced herself to be a good girl and be follow the rules. And I think I would have, if this divorce had happened earlier in my life, I probably would have remarried very quickly and could have been less healed before I made more commitments in a romantic relationship.
Yeah. Less.
So I'm thankful for the 10 years of all this growth I've had before I was at like where it became very clear that I needed to leave that relationship. It wasn't easy to accept it as gift in the middle of it, but now I see the gift.
Absolutely.
And my word this year has gone from joy to brilliance. So yeah, you'll unfetter a lot of the structures that have made us feel dampened. It's like that their light was always there and now there's less in the way, I think. And it's seeing that in other people is my work.
Yeah. How do you define success?
Right now, and it's very new, it's really making sure that I'm in a very grounded place before I coach someone, being in a very grounded place before I share my story today, to make sure that so success is aligning with being very grounded to what I'm called to do and not come out of ego. And to create a practice in a way that I communicate, in a way that I share is vulnerable when appropriate, to an appropriate level, be very authentic, and make sure that I am honoring that brilliance in the other human when you think about my practice, because I have seen the impact of such a wave. I may work with 20 people in a year, but what I know, I've affected their teams, I've affected their family structure, I've affected their well being first. And that I can honor that is the way I'm being asked to make an impact. So success, I do look at the dollars. I am really allowing abundance this year because I want to create a gorgeous home for myself. And the market in Atlanta, I really highly desire being in a very blended, gorgeous, multicultural neighborhood. Guess what? Those are the transitional neighborhoods that got very expensive during COVID. I know I want to be in community and serving, just even as a neighbor, in a very blended, I don't know what the right words, community. And I will look at financial in that flow way and expecting to receive more this year because I do want to have more and more impact, either speaking or working with corporations or whatever. But it comes first from success is really honoring that alignment and being really grounded so that I am showing up in the best way possible for whoever's in my conversations.
I love that you're speaking to this holistic perspective. You're
Yeah.
approaching life from your whole person
Yeah.
and from your center first.
Yes.
That's from
And I can trust that now. That's different.
Yeah.
I can trust that wholeheartedly now. And it's made things, the invitation to hustle is always there. And I sense it sooner. And I sense when I create it, like by filling my if like I have a space, I think I can fill it. And now I'm getting wiser. That is a little bit honoring that layering, letting go even another level of that this year. So you don't say yes to everything that comes your way, even though it's amazing. That'll be my learning this year. We'll talk about that next year together. What is for me?
Brilliance mean to you for this year?
Oh, I'm just diving into it. I invest a lot of time through the work with my coach. Her name is Sarah Trapkis. But through the work with my coach, we dive deep into the meaning of the word and how it plays out. And for me right now, it is really honoring the more like really relish and I'm thankful for the brilliance I see in me. It's really owning this gorgeous human that's come out as a whole person after a really tough couple of years. And so the is really allowing that brilliance, protecting that brilliance, nurturing that brilliance, but always with the goal, because the thing that I call it genius, I've called it, I see that immediately in other people. And my work as a coach is someone is in that space, they're ready to tap it themselves and see what their brilliance is and step into it and get out of kind of the reactive way of doing life. I can only do that if I nurture that myself.
Wow, that is so true. Here, I'll say on the other side of some of the biggest transitions for your life, how would you counsel, or what's the best advice you'd give to somebody still in kind of those tumultuous transitions in life?
That they work with a practitioner, a therapist, or a deep dive coach, or a spiritual mentor that can help them process the emotions they're going through, to create a very new relationship with the emotions that they're having, because there is so much wisdom on the other side. And that was really what I have been doing for a year in the deepest grief moments. I am that person that can charge through. I moved when I decided to move out. I had a 30-day where I lived at my cabin. Within a month and a half, I knew I needed to have my own place. I could do that.
Yeah.
And then it was surprising to me that I was going to still to process grief. And so that invitation came. The first that was so vivid was when Thanksgiving was canceled with my family because of COVID, of the host, my son. And I realized no one was coming to save me and say, hey, have the whole weekend with me. I'm going to make it okay. And yet I had invitations all weekend. I was not lonely, but I was invited to process the emotion that was going through. And I had someone that could hold space for me to do that. That's what I want to do as a coach, but also that is what you need, is to be able to not avoid the pain, but to look at it and dance with it a bit, to cry your heart out. But on the other side, and that is the slow is the new fast for me. When I walked out of that weekend, I got more clarity on the type of romantic girl. I was actively dating. I was much clearer about what I needed. I was asking for more for myself. I was really grounded in my coaching work. And so I saw the benefit, and then I really invested in allowing that experience for a year, that deep dive year. It is. It's gorgeous. It is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself.
And even still, as much as things have evolved in the business world to make space for our humanity and our
Yeah.
emotional lives, that's still
Yeah.
a very challenging place for a lot of people to go.
Yes. And I think this is where it's so important to have a practitioner that you feel a grounded fit to, because you're going to get a lot of information. You shouldn't date till you are divorced a year. You should not do this. That guy's bad for you. This guy, like just talking about that facet of it. And then even you should move out. You should do this. You should, like, I was advised, like, you need to split your money. You need to, like, no, I know. Thank you. And so to have my own mentor, my own coach, my own that honored my wisdom. And that's what I've always been about as a coach, but didn't really know it until I had experienced it in a transition that was much bigger than just becoming a business owner. It was leaving a 40-year marriage.
Yeah. That's so rich. It's so rich because it's such a vivid reminder that our jobs and our businesses they're not mutually exclusive to our person,
They are
our
not at
emotional
all.
life, our needs,
Yeah.
the whole spectrum of our lives.
Yeah.
And it all
Yeah.
has to really work together.
It does. And I think that's where I love working with the people in the midst of it and meeting them where they are. Not all people want to go deep on what they're feeling, and I honor that. But it's honoring this space where we can hold the hard and the big vision at the same time so that we can get where we really want, into a life that really is more integrated. That's what has happened for me, is I've let go of structures that weren't serving me, but now I am more whole because I am just somewhat grounded in my own self.
Yes. And I understand this is part of how I resonate with you, is that you as a space holder,
Hmm.
creating the safe
Yes.
container for people to walk
Yes.
in, whatever.
Wherever they bring, and in a conversation of either meeting someone or in a workshop or in a consult with someone, all I do is honor what they're experiencing and let them decide if this is the work they want to do. I was taught to do sales calls. But when you're doing this type of work, that abrupts the wisdom for both parties.
Yep.
And so by dropping into that real calmness that I shared, like what is success, is dropping into a conversation with someone that's considering coaching and be totally detached on whether they work with me or not. And either giving them a referral, giving them the best session they've ever had, that it was enough clarity for them to move, or where they get enough access to me to understand if is this the time, and they decide. So that space holding, I think, is so key.
Absolutely. I want to highlight one more piece, and that is you were talking about, first of all the unsolicited advice about whatever your situation may be. Also, I heard it in the conversations around food about what
Yes.
happens for you when somebody's
Yeah.
drinking in front of you or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is that kind of connection to yourself builds so much clarity
Yes.
that it's not just grounded, you're steadfast. I was going to say
Yes. Yeah.
unshakable, and we're not unshakable, but that
Yeah.
steadfast clarity. For me, I've experienced the same thing. I'm gluten free, and when my daughter was 5 or 6, she would say, "Mom, I'm so sorry you can't eat this." I was like,
I'm not.
"I'm not.
Yeah.
I am so clear that's not what I want to do for my body." So,
Yeah.
and there are lots of
Yes.
examples like that, but just to be able to have that clarity, I've experienced that over and over, makes everything so much easier.
That's the trust building. Yeah. That's the trust building in self. Yeah. Yeah.
This is what I know is right for me. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what we all are looking for, right? Is that
Yes.
clarity and that
And I did a two series. I did a two series of 5 to 6 people each, where all we talked about is when they flipped the switch into trusting themselves, because I realized that was the work I was doing with expert advisors mainly at the time, and still do. And it was so fascinating what I was learning by digging deeper into those conversations. And so that's a place on my podcast that's still there, and a gorgeous place for listeners to like, oh, I'm a realtor. When did she turn on self trust? But it's a gorgeous when we can, I think what you and I also have a commonality is honoring that in other people. Like when we see others start trusting themselves, we're going to be cheering them on. Like we want to envelop and put energy around that. And people need support when they're learning that. They really do. I always want to be a lift.
outside, there's not the
Yeah.
outside support for, yes, honor yourself, do what's best for you.
Yeah, no. No. We're going against the grain. We're a little unique. And it is the way I think that we're all getting when you think of women's agency, what you're doing. And this is one of the most powerful spaces that if there's a space you feel shaky, and honor that by getting a mentor, getting a coach, leaning in. What do I want? That's the only question you need to ask, and then see what comes up in response to that and go, I'm going to try this and see what
And then,
happens.
and then I would follow that up with, and when you know that and you trust yourself, you
Yeah.
know how you are of service in the world.
Yes. That clarity has become,
That
yeah,
becomes the
bigger.
cycle of putting it
Yeah.
out, but receiving it as
Yes. That's the genius that when I work with business owners, and where they usually have gotten off is not operating. And I was I'm a previous Gallup employee, and love the Strengths Finder. And the reason I did is because it honors the wiring of that human at the core level. And when we get off of that, or operating outside of what we're called or what we're wired to do, it is really disorienting. And helping people get back to that genius of the way they network, or the way that they do sales calls, or the way that is the roadmap. And I love illuminating that for people.
beautiful. That's the roadmap.
It is the roadmap.
Okay,
We are the roadmap.
we have the formula for success.
Yeah, that's all we need to know. I wish it was that easy. The going through instead of, yeah. But we invite Arlia, and I invite you to that growth, that space. It's a gorgeous space.
The rewards are,
Yes. I would never give up. I would never give up what I've experienced this year. And I never understood that when cancer patients might share that, or others. I had a lot of regret that it's like, oh my gosh, I'm this old and I'm now single. And now it's just been, I've redeemed the time in ways I never dreamt were possible.
Wow, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here. You have so much wisdom to share. And I
Thank
know your
you.
clients are very blessed to have you in their corner.
No, I am so glad we met, Arlia, and made that connection at ProWin. And I was like, ooh, I want to talk to you more. We were speaking the same language. I know. And tap my shoulder when you want to go deep on anything else, and I will do the same.
So how can people reach out to you, find out more about you and work with you?
I love email. I keep a very zero index email box. So I respond to emails, Diana at Diana Murphy Coaching. It's the easiest way to just see if you have a question, if you just want, like you're a woman that's in this and just want to know there's somebody else that made it through. But my website has been redone and it really shares the work I'm about, dianamurphycoaching.com. So start there. And the Leaders Table has a tab. The Leaders Table is my podcast. You can subscribe anywhere to that. And I'm just getting going like Arlia is with a refresh and just getting in with, I'm creating series and I have solo podcasts there. It's just a great way to get to know me, but also to get supported. It's all to be encouraging.
Absolutely. I know that podcast is going to be very rich with conversations.
Thank you. It has been, and we just renamed it, and now we'll just keep going from here. It's going to be exciting. Thank you for just honoring my experience and my journey, Arlia, in such a gentle, gorgeous way. I really have enjoyed being here.
Hopefully it will be inspirational and motivational for other women who will, anyone who will find some nuggets of wisdom to help them in not just their professional life, but navigating some of those challenges.
Yeah.
Personal life is.
If you think you know the right way, you're probably right.
I love that. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
This is Arlia Hoffman, and we will see you here again next time. Thanks for joining us. This program is brought to you by The Women's Agency, a full-service podcast production and coaching firm in Atlanta, Georgia. Visit thewomens'agency.com for more.